Women are a mystery. Really? Not after today's video. I spent years treating dating like a math problem. I searched for rules. I fixated on arbitrary solutions. And I tried to solve it like it was some kind of complex equation. I learned all about voice tone, body language, flirtation techniques. I spent thousands of hours of research. I even failed several of my college courses because I spent so much time learning this that I wasn't studying. And then I spent thousands of dollars on coaching and courses. And you know what I learned? Nothing. And why is that? Because I and my coaches had it all wrong. And today, I want to teach you guys the most valuable dating advice that I have to offer. So let's start off with what most guys get wrong. Most guys are asking themselves the wrong questions. They ask things like, what do I say? What do I do? How do I get her to like me? How do I get her number? We're very logical. We fixate on these arbitrary metrics of success. We think to ourselves, oh, if I just do the thing and I get the result, therefore, #winning. But what's the problem with all this? You're making it about you. Your mindset becomes, how do I get what I want? You put blinders on and you don't see anything else. You're completely self-centered. You're completely selfish. And this keeps you from being collaborative. So this creates two problems. Okay. The first is outcome fixation. It leaves you constantly thinking, is this working? Does she like me? What do I say next? What's the pickup line? Where do I take her on a date? You're trying to manage the situation, which means you end up performing rather than expressing. You're trying to put on a face to get the result that achieves the metrics that you're looking for. But this isn't how relating works. Number two, self-focus. You're constantly thinking, how do I sound? How do I look? What does she think of me? Your attention gets stuck inside your own head. And when this happens, you stop observing. You stop learning about her and you stop gathering information. And when you're stuck inside your own head, you stop thinking about her and you're only thinking about yourself. So there's a reframe that fixes this. Instead of asking, how do I get her to like me? Instead, you should be asking, what kind of person is she? And how can I include her in the things that I'm looking to achieve? Now it becomes a story. It becomes a story of you and her together. And that's where the magic happens. Letting the outcome happen naturally means the outcome becomes a shared experience. Self-focus becomes the expression of your core personality. It becomes your narrative. It becomes the thing that she knows you for. So this serves to steer you away from performance, which is what most common dating wisdom is predicated on, and it steers you towards self-expression and understanding. You will find that your anxiety turns into curiosity. You begin to want to know who she is as a person. What are her values? And how does she perceive herself? How does she perceive the world? Curiosity is naturally calm. It's naturally confident. It puts your narrative into the buyer's frame rather than the seller's. You're no longer trying to get her to like you and do the right things. Instead, you are building collaboratively. You are including her and building something together that the two of you are going to be able to experience together. You stop chasing approval and you start observing patterns. This is awareness of her narrative. You're aware of how she's expressing herself. And you can only do this if you are curious and you're not inside your own head. If you're liking this so far, hit the like button and comment your thoughts. Even if you think I'm wrong, I love criticism. I thrive on it. That's how I learn. The second mistake most men make. Men tend to react to behavior rather than reading personality. And here's why that's wrong. Behavior is situational. Personality, however, is consistent. Most men see one behavior, maybe they like it, maybe they don't, and they jump to conclusions. But personality is a pattern. It is developed over time. You need to get to know someone through multiple experiences in order to fully understand who they are as a person. This ties into the whole adage of you don't get a second chance at a first impression. The reason why that's a rule is because when you only have one experience of that person, you can't extrapolate an average that allows you to understand who this person actually is. A single moment just simply doesn't tell you the whole story. So, what's an example of this? Well, a common example is slow texting. There's a lot of different explanations why this could be the case. She could be busy. She could be focused, especially if she's a career-driven type of person. She may be guarded. She may be slow to trust you. And so she doesn't feel comfortable opening up to you and talking with you consistently. She could be socially distracted. Maybe she has a ton of friends. Maybe she's getting bombarded by texts from guys all the time. Who knows? Or maybe the reality is she's just not interested. It's the same behavior, but there's 4 different interpretations, and any one of them could be correct. So what happens if you misread her story? Well, for starters, you might push when you should back off. You may withdraw when you need to stay steady and let her feel your presence more. Or maybe you interpret things personally when it's really not about you. The better question to ask is, what type of person behaves like this in this context? What you're really looking for are patterns, behaviors, tendencies, emotions, decisions. You want to find out the average of who this person is. You want to read her narrative. How is she expressing herself? And pay attention to that. Pay attention to how she's presenting herself to you through her narrative so that you can understand her story. You can understand who the underlying person is. When you understand the underlying person, that's when real connection develops. Most men think the goal is to impress her by saying the right things, avoiding mistakes, and ultimately convincing her to like you. And this couldn't be further from the truth. This is not the real goal. The real goal is to understand who she is. And you do this by reading her narrative, reading how she is expressing herself. And you need to understand the dynamic between the two of you. This is your shared story. Understand that different people will bring out different parts of your personality. I've witnessed this plenty of times in my own life. There are lots of people that I'm friends with that I've met in the past, and I can't necessarily explain what it is about them, but they just bring out a certain part of my personality. They might bring out the fun side. They might bring out the boring side. They might bring out the really thoughtful, logical side. They might bring out the caretaker. Makes me want to help them. Everyone on this planet is so deep and vibrant in their personalities. You can't possibly understand exactly who they are in any reasonable amount of time. The simple reality is what excites one woman might annoy another. What comforts one woman might be boring to another. And what attracts one woman might repel another. You need to be reading her personality. You need to be curious about her. You should want to get to know her. If you treat every woman the same way, your interactions will be boring. Things are going to be confusing and inconsistent, and your results are going to reflect that. You're not going to have consistent results. You're going to be relying on luck and hoping that what you're saying and what you're doing lands with the woman that's in front of you. So you're probably asking yourself, well, Ethan, this is all so confusing. This is so much. How am I supposed to do all these things and read into the woman's personality? This is so confusing. This is where archetypes come in. Archetypes reflect patterns. And these patterns give you some very useful structures and frameworks to work with. They give you patterns that you can recognize that are repeatable. It gives you a framework that you can relate to, so you're not just guessing or taking action randomly. It gives you something to work with. And it's a starting point for understanding personality. With this framework that I've devised, how does she respond to men? How does she respond to leadership? And how does she handle emotion and tension? Once you understand the type of personality that you're working with, the interaction becomes so much easier. And this is exactly the kind of thing that I help guys with. If you want my help, I'll put links in the description. I have created a list of distinct personality archetypes that are predicated on the 8 personality types from mythology. Now, for simplicity, I have condensed them down to 5. And at this point in my dating life, I have dated at least one of every type on this list. So I can speak from experience how to interact with them. So let's talk about some of the common female personality archetypes, how to recognize them, and how to engage with them effectively. Number 1, the independent. This is your bad boss bitch. Her core traits are she's focused, she's assertive, she's opinionated, and she values autonomy. This is exactly the kind of girl that when you text her and she doesn't respond right away, it's probably because she's busy. She's probably very career oriented. I dated a couple of these at this point in my life, and every single one of them has a very high standard for the work that they do, and the relationships reflect this. Her strengths include ambition. She's typically very goal focused, which means she's probably not going to be super focused on you. Another big strength is direct communication. These are the women that'll speak their mind. They're not going to beat around the bush. They're just going to come out and say how they feel. I don't like how you did that. I don't like the way you talk to me. We need to do this differently. I want to see you more. This is one of the big benefits of dating this type of woman. And she can be incredibly loyal. Incredibly loyal once your values are aligned. If she sees you, if her ambitious and focused mind sees you as a strong potential partner, she'll be very, very loyal. I've witnessed this firsthand several times in my life. So what are the blind spots? What are some of the things that maybe she doesn't see about herself? What are some of the downsides? Well, the first one is because of her very assertive personality, she's going to test leadership. Now, we didn't talk about relationship dynamics in this video, but it's very important that as a man, you always assume the leadership frame. And she's going to test that. She's going to push against that because she's assertive, because she's ambitious. She struggles to surrender control. This is going to be particularly important in the bedroom. Women need to be in their feminine. They need to relinquish control and let the man take over. And this is very difficult for her to do because she's so controlling in the rest of her life. But if you are the kind of guy that she feels safe and comfortable with, that she can open up and let herself go and let herself relax, magic. Magic will happen. And lastly, she becomes hypocritical when stressed. I mean, frankly, that's something that we all kind of do from time to time. But with this particular woman, a lot of times when the emotions run high, sometimes she has a tendency to contradict herself. And it happens more often with this type than perhaps some of the other ones. And again, a lot of this is a byproduct of the fact that she is so assertive. So what do most men do wrong? Well, the first problem is a lot of men try to over-dominate. Don't do this. You cannot beat her at her own game. You can't do it. She's a very dominant person already. It is not your job to over-dominate her and make her open up to you or make her submit to you or make her be in her feminine. That's not your job. It's never going to work. But the opposite is also true. You also can't be passive. She's very dominating. She's very aggressive. She's very outgoing. She's very forthright about her thoughts and emotions. And a lot of guys become passive. This is actually one of the problems that I had when I've dated this type in the past, is if you can't dominate this type of woman, you can't be assertive toward this type of woman, the natural tendency is to become more passive. But you also can't do that either. So what actually works? Number one, I'm sure you guys have already come to this conclusion, but you need to stay calm under pressure. She's going to test you. She's going to be assertive. You need to reward her respect, not her attitude. She's always going to have attitude. But when she respects you, she respects your time, she respects your emotions, Then you show her love. It's up to you to set the framework that you are someone who is also there to be respected just as you respect her. This is the type of woman that you're going to be more emotional equals with. Don't compete emotionally. You can't. She will out assert you. I promise. I can tell you from experience. Just don't do it. Okay. Now, again, don't be passive, but don't try to out assert her. You need to lead through decisiveness, not volume. It's not about raising your voice. It's about being calm. You need to be calm with this type of woman, and you need to be rational. If you need to take a step back and come back later and continue the discussion, then you need to do that. But you need to be decisive, and you need to be able to have the hard conversations when they need to happen. So here's the key takeaway. With her, leadership is not about overpowering her. It's not about dominance. It's about staying unshaken in the emotional storm that she can potentially bring. And she will at some point. Number 2, the romantic. These women are defined by a core sense of emotion. She tends to be very future-oriented and values connection above most other things. Most importantly, this is the kind of girl who believes in love stories. She wants to be part of one. This is the primary reason why this woman is the way she is. So what are her strengths? These type of women typically have a very deep sense of loyalty. They will love you. They tend to get very attached. They have high emotional investment. And they also tend to be quite nurturing. But what are her blind spots? What are the downsides that maybe she doesn't see about herself? She tends to overanalyze. This leads to a lot of anxiety. And as a man, it's going to be up to you to reassure her and tell her that everything is okay. Because she's going to overthink. She's going to overanalyze everything that you do. Oh, he didn't text me. Oh, he texted me this thing. Oh, he said this thing. What did he mean by that? Always, always, on and on and on. Again, because she's trying to live that love story. She's looking for that companionship, for that love, that support, that deep emotional connection. And she doesn't want to mess that up. So she's going to read into it and try to understand maybe things that aren't there to be understood. If you're inconsistent with this girl, this creates anxiety. Inconsistency leads to anxiety. Consistency is key. And also, she can become clingy. This is the type of girl that has a very high level of emotional investment that it often leads to clinginess. She wants to be close, much more than most guys are comfortable with. But that's okay. The key is to be consistent and reassure her that her love is not wasted on you. So what do most men do that's wrong? Most men get overwhelmed. They get overwhelmed by the level of love and affection and emotion that they bring to the relationship. And men tend to withdraw when the intensity arises. This is the type of girl who tends to be much more emotionally high maintenance. You need to be there for her. And a lot of this comes down to the story she has about you and her together. So how do you make it work? How do you make it work with this type of woman? Consistency is much more important than intensity. It's not your job to shower her with love, to shower her with affection. Your goal is to show up the same way every day. Her anxiety is her greatest weakness, but it's also your greatest strength. If you show up consistently every day and you reassure her that your connection is strong, she's going to love you more. It does not mean that you need to text her all the time. It could literally just be a good morning text, but do it every day. Whatever it is that you do, be consistent. You need to give her structured reassurance. Moments where maybe she's doubting you, doubting the relationship, doubting your affections for her. You need to know how to tell her that it's okay, that it is safe to be with you. And you need to give direction about the future. She's going to be looking to build that love story, but it's up to you to set the direction. And you need to communicate that. And you need to communicate it often. She's always going to be wondering, where is this going? Like I said, you need to use her anxiety to your advantage. Because if you don't use it, she will use it against you and against the relationship. So the key takeaway with this one is she doesn't need more emotion. She has plenty of it herself. She needs emotional security. She needs to know that you're the type of guy worth giving those emotions to. Number 3, the social butterfly. We all know this one. Who is this girl? She's that high social energy, flirty personality. She craves attention. She's the girl you see at the bars and clubs that are going one guy to the next, flirting with them, hitting on them, moving on to the next one. She's dancing. She's in the middle of the dance floor. She loves the attention. When she's out with friends, she's typically the life of the party. She's the one cracking jokes. She's the one bringing all the emotion, all the intensity. What are her strengths? I'm sure you can guess. She is fun. She's expressive, and she's a great social communicator. She's also a great social connector. This is the kind of girl you want to have in your life to be the heart of the party. This is the kind of girl you want to have in your life if you're looking to have a great time. Because she is. But she's also intensely loyal. And we'll talk about that in a second. So what are her blind spots? She is incredibly driven by external validation, which means that the more attention she gets, the better she feels about herself. But the opposite is also true. If she's not getting external validation, she can often shut down, and it affects her sense of self-esteem and self-worth. So she needs it. She needs this attention. She often tests for jealousy, which means that if you're the kind of guy who doesn't like her getting attention from other guys, other girls, she's going to shut down. She's going to close off to you. She's not going to trust you. She also has inconsistent boundaries. A lot of her boundaries are going to be predicated on how she feels in the moment. It's predicated on the validation. It's predicated on the social context that she's in. And you have to be okay with this. So what do most men do? Most men get jealous. This is the killer of a relationship with this type of woman. You cannot be jealous. You need to understand that as part of her core personality, that she needs to go out and be a social person. She needs to engage with lots of people. She probably has a lot of friends. By the way, if you're texting her and she's not responding, this is the type of girl that's not responding because she's got tons of friends. She has a ton of people DMing her. She got a ton of people texting her because she knows so many people. Why? Because she's driven by that sense of validation. So you can't be jealous. You also can't over control. This type of woman is a free spirit. You can't lock it down. You need to let her be a free spirit. This is where the whole adage of if you love something, let it go. If it comes back, it's yours. If it doesn't, it was never yours to begin with. This is very apropos for this type of woman. You need to be okay with letting her go and being with other men and having lots of other friends and not spending time with you all the time. And you definitely cannot compete for attention. The worst thing you can do with this type of woman is to try to get her to give you more attention. That is the death of any relationship you have with this woman. You can't lock her down. It is your job to show up, which leads me to my next point, which is let's talk about what works. The main thing is you cannot react to her attention plays. You need to understand that it's all a game to her. And she's not serious about most of the guys that she's flirting with. She's just a very flirty personality. You have to be okay with this. If you were a jealous type of guy, this woman's not going to work out for you, period. Full stop. You're going to be miserable. You need to reward this type of woman with private intimacy. She needs to know that at the end of the day, you are her safe harbor. She goes out, she's having a great time, and then she's having a bad time, and emotions are up and they're down, but you are her rock. You are her safe harbor. You need to maintain an abundance mindset. You need to maintain the idea in your mind that this is just one woman and that she can go off with a guy anytime she wants. And you have to be okay with that. That's the only way a relationship with this type of woman will work. So the key takeaway here is if you try to compete for her attention, if you try to beat her at her game and get on her level, you are going to lose every time. She will win the attention game. But if you are calm, you are relaxed, you are her rock, you are her safe harbor, she will come back to you with extreme loyalty because she feels emotionally safe with you. You provide the stability for her chaotic life. Number 4, the avoidant. This is another one that we all know. This is the girl who's very private. She doesn't open up very easily to other people. She probably doesn't have a ton of friends. But the friends that she does have, she's typically very close with. She's slow to trust. She's not going to open up to you right away. In fact, it might take a very long time. But she's also very independent. She tends to do her own thing, which means that she doesn't really necessarily need a partner. For her, a relationship is more of a luxury that she wants and craves and desires. What are her strengths? I mean, quite simply, she's low maintenance. She's stable because she's learned and adapted to live life alone where she relies on herself for all of her needs. She's typically low drama. Not always the case. Sometimes you peel back the layers and there's a little bit of crazy underneath there, but it's that way with any woman. Generally speaking, she's going to be low drama and she's going to be self-sufficient. And this ties into the whole low maintenance, low emotional maintenance. Because she's very guarded and very independent from people, she tends to manage her own emotions very well. What are her blind spots? Well, quite simply, she tends to pull away a lot, especially when she feels vulnerable. And she's going to feel vulnerable as she begins to open up and form an intimate relationship with you. And you need to be okay with this. You need to be okay with letting her go and letting her come back when she's ready. This is very similar to the social butterfly. But with the social butterfly, it's because she's going out and she's very open with people. She's very loud and charismatic. So she's going off and interacting with other people, whereas the avoidant is not. She needs solitude. She needs to reflect. She needs to work on her own thing. And she'll come to you when she's ready. She also struggles with emotional dependence. And this is killer if you're trying to build a healthy, sustainable relationship. I know it's very difficult to form a bond, to form a friendship with this type of person because they're too self-reliant. They don't really need you. They want you, but they don't need you. So it's going to be up to you to recognize that and learn to work with that and be okay with that. You have to be the one that shows up. What do most men do that doesn't work? Well, they chase harder. They see her pull back and they're like, oh my God, you have to tell me, how do you feel? Blah, 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 right? No. That's just going to push her away. She doesn't want to open up. She'll open up when she's ready. So don't chase. And they also try to force intimacy. Things like moving things along too fast. And I remember being out on a date with a woman just like this. And in my normal sense of moving things forward and being comfortable, getting comfortable with her, building comfort physically, testing some boundaries, seeing what she's cool with, there was a moment where she just stood up and she's like, oh, well, it was nice meeting you. And she ran off and that was it. Never saw her again. Did I make a mistake? It's entirely possible. But the reality is, when I look back on it, it was simply because I was moving things along a bit faster than she was comfortable with. And you have to be okay with that. So what works with this type of woman? Number one most important thing, you have to give her space. You have to give her space, and it can't feel like you're punishing her. It can't feel like it's a negative. It cannot feel to her like you want her to open up, and because she's not, you're sort of casting her away. So how do you do this? You need to tell her it's okay. Take your time. Text me when you're ready. Text me in a couple of days. It's okay. Reassurance is going to be very important here. You need to be willing to escalate slowly. In the example that I gave, that was the problem that I had. And looking back on it, I am wiser and now I know. And you need to have a very calm emotional baseline. I'm sure you guys can see that there's some common threads. We're only up to number 4, and there's some common threads that run through all of these. And this is one of them. You need to be calm. It's your job to be there, to be present. So what's the key takeaway with this one? Pressure closes her. You have to be cool with who she is as a person. You need to recognize that she has a independent personality, that she is a whole person without you. She doesn't really need you, to be honest, but it's your patience and your understanding that will open her emotionally and physically. Number 5, the nurturer. And I personally have a soft spot for this type of woman because she's very giving. At her core, she's caring, she's empathetic, and she tends to be very relationship focused. Her strengths are deep emotional support. She wants to get to know you. She wants to bond with you. She is looking for a guy that she can connect with very deeply. She tends to have a lot of emotional intelligence. And a lot of this is because she connects so well with people. And she tends to be very warm. She's a very warm personality. In a lot of ways, she's very similar to the romantic. A key difference between this one and the romantic is that the romantic tends to focus on love stories. She tends to focus on the story of you and her together. Whereas the nurturer has a more serving role. She wants to participate in concrete ways. She wants to provide for you. She wants to help you, which brings me to her blind spots. Her number 1 blind spot is self-sacrifice. When she finds a guy that she really genuinely, deeply cares about, she will support him. She will provide for him, even to the point that she's neglecting her own needs. This is the type of woman who will cook lavish meals for the man that she's with, but she won't cook for herself. She also becomes resentful when she's not appreciated. So important. As a woman who gives in concrete ways as the primary means of building the connection and building a relationship, you have to appreciate her when she does these things. You have to be empathetic and caring, understand what it is that she's doing, understand that this is how she's building the relationship. She can also overfunction, which means that she will do so much for the men that she's with that she hurts herself in the end, emotionally. I've seen this in my own experience, but also people that I've known, friends that I've known that have fallen into the trap of dating the wrong guy. There was a friend of mine years ago who dated a guy who was sort of casual, but she was the nurturer type. She showed up to a party with him and she made all this food. She spent hours that day preparing food for this party that she didn't know anybody there. She just came with him. They broke up less than a week later and she was devastated. She was completely devastated. So what do most men do? Most men take her for granted. And it's such a shame. Guys, you need to recognize why she's doing these things. She's doing it for you. She's doing it because this is how she shows love. This is how she shows affection. When she does these things for you, when she cooks for you, she brings things for you, she does things for you, pleasures you, you need to tell her that. You need to tell her what a great job she's doing. You just shower her with appreciation, which brings me to what works. Verbal recognition, very, very important. She needs to know that what she's doing is bringing the relationship together. She needs leadership. She needs guidance. She needs to know how she can contribute to your life and to the relationship. And you need to be someone strong that she can invest in, someone that she can depend on. Again, in much the same way as the romantic, this type of woman tends to have a much longer term outlook. The key takeaway here is, in a sense, you need to save her from herself. She will self destruct trying to please men. She's a pleaser, she's a doer. You need to reward her efforts with love and attention, and the relationship will grow and it will flourish. So, simply by seeking to figure out what the woman's archetype is, solves so many problems that guys have. What do I say? Focus on asking something or saying something, leading the conversation to a direction that leads her to telling you what type of person she is. What do I do on a date? Focus on doing what works and avoiding what most men do. Is she the right woman for me? You need to figure that out. You need to figure out how her strengths and blind spots fit with the story that you are creating of your life. And that requires introspection. It requires intention. It requires design. So if you want to transform your dating life and make it like nothing you've ever experienced before, you can get my help. I'll put links in the description. You can join the community on Discord. We'd love to have you. We do live streams every week, and you get direct access to me and other experienced members in the community. Otherwise, if you like and subscribe, I'll see you guys next time.